Okay, so let's talk about the coaching part of podcasting. So that
Sure.
we're really excited to have you on our team. We've gotten a lot of requests from folks who are interested in doing podcasts. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of talk about the process and also kind of set the expectations, right? Like we love content and especially when it's science communications content, but I think it's really helpful to know all the elements that are involved and so I would love to kind of pick your brain about what that's like and how you envision helping folks with that.
Yeah. So I think one of the first things with any type of endeavor before you start something is to kind of have a roadmap, right? Like with any journey. So what I've realized is to, I think in the beginning is to sort of understand the framework or the themes that somebody wants to do. And then from there, we develop, like I said, like a roadmap of what types of themes do you want to focus on? Who are your audience, who you're focusing on? Where do you want to be on? Because podcasting, as much as it's new and is exciting, it can be so overwhelming because there's a lot of categories and subcategories so it's really good to know, okay, if your type of themes, where will you be on, and how would you be placed in these various different podcasting platforms, or even where, because that's another thing that I don't think a lot of people understand is like, you need to understand where will your podcast be hosted, because I think people just think it just appears in Spotify or it just appears on Apple Podcasts, but there's also a lot of background things that happen, and that all just starts in the roadmap, the framework of what exactly you want to do. So I think in the very beginning, it's really setting that out, and then it's easier because, given from my own experience, I was just winging everything, and I was and I was just shooting in the dark and sort of learning on my feet. So yeah, like I said, understanding that framework. How do you your audio, because everything is audio quality. Is it going to be video? Is it going to be just no
Mhm.
sound, just no video? And with that, how do you get your audio to be crisp? What are some tips and tricks? Because yeah, people want to hear something really good. Of course, in the beginning, you can be forgiven as you're still learning, and also learning like, which days would you like to podcast? Why that particular day? How long would you like to podcast for? Would you want it to be an hour? Do you want it to be 15 minutes? How many times? So there's a lot of the framework, I think, is so important. And I think that's what overwhelms people to stop, because it gets exciting in the beginning. I'm doing a podcast, you know, but podcasting is about consistency. And I think if you really have your theoretical framework, as you call it, it's easier for you to know what to do. And yeah, and then from then on, and I think that's one of the key things that I would love to stress with people, to really work out that structure, because I think once you have that, it's you golden. And then maybe you can start thinking about the other things, about promotion and marketing and all of that stuff. But I think the core structure before, yeah, I want to say, before you even get started, I think that's so important to understand why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, because your audience is not going to be everyone. And
And it
and
can't be
maybe,
everybody. It's
yeah, it
impossible.
can't. It can't. So you mustn't get sad if your best friend is not going to listen to your podcast. It's okay. There's going to be, let's figure out who your audience is and what ages. Is it males? Is it females? So those really core cracks things are some of the things that I really want to work with someone. And these are the things that I wish I knew when I
Mhm.
was doing my podcast, because like I said in the beginning, when I said with in my one of my favorite podcasts with Ndoni, she laid out a map, and I think it's so much easier when you have a map. You can navigate all these things so much easier. So I think, in simple terms, with the people who I want to work with, is I just want to build a map with them, and then they can go on their own path as long as they figured out the map is there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Uh, Having a plan is always really helpful. And
Mm,
I feel like there's a lot of times where maybe there are a few audiences that you could definitely tap into, but is that going to be the most impactful way to get your podcast out there? Like, should you niche further down? And I completely agree with you. Audio is so important. Any podcast that I listen to that is echoey and hard to hear, I don't listen to it just because it's a strain, and you want that
Yeah.
like warm audio, in your ear. And if, achieving that can be challenging for podcasters too. So just like helping them find that sweet spot is going to be a game changer for sure.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, and also maybe just apart from the technicalities, I think it's also just nice to have a community, somebody to lean on when you're starting. And that's what I can also be, because I grew because I wasn't able to find a community immediately. And thankfully now there's a lot more podcasts out there, so there's a lot more communities. But maybe if somebody doesn't know where to start looking, I could help them, given that I've had the pleasure of being in this field for about 3 years now. And I've had the opportunity to liaise with different types of people. I might not know them to the core, but one thing about me is I always know someone who knows someone who knows someone.
That's right.
And we'll find that person. Yeah, so I think that's also another thing that's also a value that I bring, that type of community, that type of, hey, and like, I don't know how to do it anymore, yeah, I think that's also important, as much as we talk about the technicalities aspect, but sometimes it's just, listen, it's hard. Where can I lean on? Who can I ask for help? Maybe if I can't help, I have a nice network that you could lean on to, and then we can see how we can help you from there.
Yeah, I love that. And you're going to be speaking of podcasting, you're going to be in New York later this month. This is September, because you are being honored.
Yeah,
so you got to share something about that.
Yeah, so I think this is okay. This can also be the catch. I was actually reading something, I was listening to something about podcasting, how the beauty with being a podcaster is that there's so many extensions and opportunities that can come from you being a podcaster. So because of my podcast, somebody was like, hey, we like what you're doing, would love for you to interview our person. So for example, in this case, it was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They saw my podcast, they reached out and they were like, we'd love for you to interview one of our directors. And that went so well that I was invited to New York, yay, for the Goalkeepers event, which is part of what do you call it? It's a side program under the UN General Assembly, and the Goalkeepers really honors some really amazing people who are doing some great work that link to the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of mine is obviously, quality education and gender equality, which is also part of the SDGs. So that was also something that happened from that. And of course, that's because of podcasting. So you never know who's listening. You never know who's watching, and these things can happen. And it can happen in 3 years, or it can happen in 3 months. But that's just the beauty of having your voice out there. And if eventually, actually just being really good at what you do as well, and showing up and doing an excellent job, that the people are like, listen. And of course, I'm so honored and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. And also, this came off my fellowship, which I'm on with Africa No Filter, which is also the fellowship that I'm currently doing, which speaks on solutions that African experts, science experts are doing. So, which is also another opportunity that came because of podcasting.
That's so cool.
So, yes, podcasting is really great. And yeah, and me and you connected because of podcasting.
Yes, that's right. So, that's how we met. It's so true.
there's so many opportunities to podcasting. And yeah, we met because I interviewed Tana on my podcast, and she was like, hey, there's Lori. So yeah,
Yeah,
podcasting.
it's pretty good. Everyone should do it.